Nancy Pelosi put on quite a show today, somehow equating President Trump with a king. Is he that hard to beat? She seems to think so.
The president who procured his appointment in his first instance through improper and corrupt acts might repeat his guilt and return to power.
Okay, here we go again. He improperly stole the election with corrupt and improper acts. Gotcha. It had nothing to do with the fact that the Democrats put up the worst political candidate perhaps imaginable, someone who didn't even have the decency to campaign for votes in states like Pennsylvania. So here we are tonight with Nancy Pelosi equating the President of the United States with a monarch who is oppressing the American people. I'd suggest she consider the reverse, actually. Americans felt so oppressed by party elites that they decided to take matters into their own hands, just like when they threw the tea in the Boston Harbor in 1773 to send a message to Great Britain. The Democrats are the ones telling Americans what we can and cannot say. They are deciding what is moral. They are deciding who can be tolerated and who cannot.
Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome.
And that kind of rhetoric, it leads to this. And even this. And this. It leads to innocent people, journalists like Andy Ngo, just trying to do their jobs by covering these protests, being abused like this. So when Nancy Pelosi tells us the president is a king who won't allow freedom, I ask, if he was really a king, wouldn't he have locked those people up? Meanwhile, if you want to talk about stifling freedom, let's talk to the guy who has had his own life threatened because he dared to report on Antifa's antics. Conservative journalist Andy Ngo, he joins me on set right now. Welcome, good to see you.
Thank you for having me on.
Wow, that's something. I mean, just looking at that video and knowing how you had all those people around you at that time, what was going through your head?
Where are the police? We were in front of the Justice Center in Oregon, so in front of the police precinct, the sheriff's office, institutions of law.
And they weren't there for you?
No,
nobody was there.
It's just anarchy and chaos.
Anarchy and chaos, and you're in the thick of it, getting attacked by these people. When you hear Nancy Pelosi make these parallels between Donald Trump and an actual king, given your experience and what you've been through, Andy, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so I was really surprised to hear her call him a king president, because it was the far left, aided by the left, who rioted across the United States because Hillary Clinton didn't get her coronation. Where I live in Portland in November 2016, we had days of violent rioting, which has now become routine and banal in that city all the way to today, in part because of the reckless incitement and rhetoric of politicians like Pelosi. The impeachment process is legally weak, but I think what those politicians are trying to do is to delegitimize the entire democratic process. And that is a propaganda win for Antifa, because that's how they recruit prospective members.
Right, so somehow it's like okay to use violence as far as Antifa is concerned, provided the ends justify the means, right?
Absolutely.
And in this case, they want to shut down the right, and in doing so, it's amazing how people come full circle, right? Because they're then becoming exactly what they say they hate.
Yes. A lot of this is projection. We were told that the people who would riot when Donald Trump loses to Hillary would be the right. That's not what we saw. And I think, with the rhetoric she's using, referring to Trump as a monarch or a king president, is projection on what they would do.
Yeah, and by the way, let's not forget the politics of all this. In other words, she's trying to spin some new yarn, right? So she's run out of things. I mean, the Mueller thing fizzled out, Kavanaugh fizzled out, Ukraine's fizzling out, and so now they've got a new one, which is Donald Trump thinks he's a king. His son is named Barron. Here we go. We got to get rid of the king. It's mind-boggling, and it's very disturbing to me as an American, because I look at this and someone who is a student of early American history, who grew up in one of the 13 colonies. I know what those colonists fought for, and there is no there's no parallel that you could be making right now, other than, Andy, some people felt like they weren't being represented by the elites in Washington or by the swamp. And so that is why they put a change agent in, a disruptor in, who could kind of shake things up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think what's disheartening about the current discourse in America is the dehumanization of those on the right. I mean, I can have my disagreements, anybody can have disagreements with certain politics that come from Republicans, but the language that he's used day in and day out is to strip half of this country of their humanity, to give the justification for the violence we see, on the political violence on the streets. I mean, you really have to view these ideological opponents as animals to be beating them with crowbars and bricks and bike locks.
Well, listen, stay safe. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you in person. Andy Ngo. Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is taking on the liberal professors. The epic takedown is going totally viral, and rightly so.